welcome back to another episode of Car Stories
with Sung Kang
and Emelia Hartford. We appreciate you guys tuning in because today we have a very special guest.
Yeah, we get to share with you guys the man behind the myth, his method to the madness, if you will, and his history. Very inspiring conversation.
Yeah, and he's not afraid to really open up. And we talked about physical, mental health, his business, how he's come to where he is today, where he started, where he hopes to go.
Yeah, I think he's just a great ambassador for the car community. The way he keeps, the enthusiasm for the content that he makes and why he does what he does. It was just a very inspirational conversation.
Yeah, it's clear that he loves what he does. So, without further ado, James Pumphrey.
It's so interesting to meet somebody in person, James, because your persona on screen is so big, and then when you meet in person, you're
downright quiet.
You are.
Yeah, I always say when we have new hosts, I'm be 120% of your personality, and so I think I'm generally 120 to 150% of myself on camera, but then in real life, I always tell people if I acted like that all the time, I wouldn't have any friends. I would be the most annoying person. I was just move out, baby. I'd just be impossible to be around. So, and I also think I'm a pretty shy person, in general. So I think, I came up doing comedy, that's what I moved to LA to do, and so I think being on stage and being in front of the camera just yelling is the way that I am personable, whereas I'd much rather talk to 300 people than one person for sure. I'm not I don't like parties very much, so
Same.
yeah, I don't I like the talking at, not so much the interaction. So
It seems like that's a common thread with a lot of people from comedy, is that their stage persona is so different from, their off stage.
Yeah. I think my on-screen persona is who I want to be, and no one can talk back. This is getting real deep, real fast.
It happens.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, and so no one can chime in. I'm just talking to people. So, but yeah.
Do you find it exhausting to socialize?
Yeah. What is that? Your social battery. I definitely think my social battery gets drained. I'm trying to be better about it though, especially now that I'm older and more I've been doing Donut for almost 8 years now.
Yeah.
And so there's a number of kids who when they meet me that's something that means something to them. So I'm trying to be more give them the experience that they want and the experience that to take away and be oh, I met James from Donut versus me being oh, I'm just shy, and they're okay, but I'm 15.
Yeah.
So it's I have to overcome my insecurities and anxieties and give people what they want. Yeah, it's yeah.
I can relate with that because when people meet me, they think that they're going to meet Han, and they end up meeting a grouchy guy that's insecure.
Yeah, but dude, you lucked out and you made your best known on-screen persona stoic. I wish I would have done that. Looking back, I'm dang, I wish I would have been just good looking dude staring at stuff is
eating snacks.
Yeah, eating snacks. You really you picked a good one.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised how many snacks I get as little gifts from fans, and I tell them, and they want me to start eating it in front of them, and
oh man,
I'm I can't eat all these snacks, man.
Yeah.
There's only certain snacks I like to eat anyway. But it's interesting when fans think you are the person that they see on screen. And,
for sure.
And at the end of the day, we're just people with people problems too.
Yeah, man. I got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all do.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's something that I relate with you is when I was younger, people would see me and they're yeah, can I get this picture? And, I would many times I would say no.
Yeah.
Because I'm, doing my own thing. And then Dwayne Johnson actually shared this with me. Like I asked him, I was like, hey, how do you deal? Because you're way more famous than me, and you've been famous for a long time. Like how, do you deal with like the fans? And he put it in this like really amazing like Zen perspective. He said, there are very few people in this world that it's gifted with the opportunity to make somebody happy just by asking their name.
Yeah.
And, putting your hand on their shoulder and taking a picture, because it might mean the world for them for that day or that week or for their life. And if you look at it that way, like, there is a responsibility and a great opportunity, right?
Definitely. That's definitely something I've come around to, because like, I'm by no means like super famous, but I'm more famous than I thought I would be. Like I get recognized in the store, and like it got to a point like where I was like annoyed by it. And then like one day I just kind of like opened my eyes and was like, why, who am I to like be annoyed by this, And so like, yeah, like giving what that person, like, because those people like are 100% responsible for like really my entire life, like my house and my cars and the fact that I get to do what I really like to do with my friends every day. Like that's my job. And so like, yeah, like you said, like making someone happy, like that's like an extension of it. And, I really have turned it around and realized like how fortunate I am to be able to like have some kid, make his day by like seeing me at Sprouts,
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the produce section.
The produce section. Oh, dude, do you like vegetables too? Yeah, dude, what do you got? Carrots? Oh, dude, Pumphrey likes carrots, dude. So yeah, for sure. I was definitely like uncomfortable with it though, for sure. Like early on.
Well, there's no book to teach you how to become famous, right? People think it's easy, but you have to learn. I think you have to grow into it.
Yeah.
And then find purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a positive thing, opposed to you like running away from it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was also like in being like in this situation, or whatever. Like you welcome criticism a lot, and so like just people like correcting my videos, and like I put so much into my work, and I feel like the stuff that we make, like creation is like a very vulnerable process, and so like it is, whatever we put out is like a representation of ourselves. And like when somebody who like you don't know is like, hey, like you suck, like I think early on that really like affected me, and I think probably influenced like those feelings of like just like let me be kind of situation. But I think I'm a while into it now, so
Yeah. You get older and you stop caring what people think.
Yeah,
so.
and I would really hate it if people stopped liking me.
Yeah.
Like I think that also contributes to me being cool with it now. Is like, oh, what if they stop coming up to me? Like then I'm in trouble. You know? So
I mean, we hear it all the time with the fast movies. They're like, those movies suck, and you guys suck, and you're a sucky actor. And it's hard. It's hard to take criticism. You know?
For sure.
Yeah, I had to shift my mindset as well from getting like hate comments, hate mail even, and a lot of just negativity. It's like, well, you are commenting on my video. I hope you enjoyed the video because you watched it enough to have this opinion.
I mean, I'm sure you don't. I mean, with so many more levels, like being a woman in this industry.
I appreciate you recognizing.
The fact that you're a woman, or that you had to
Either way,
But yeah, people have some audacity, but they're the ones who watch the videos. So.
I mean, it takes a lot of energy to like write hatred, right? Like I had actually, stepping back now, I admire these people that give negative criticism because, damn, like I admire you because first you have the time to do that, and then you have the energy to spew out that hate because that's not easy, man.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we get like legit good criticism that's like not necessarily positive, And like we'll take it to heart, and like kind of we've shifted like our content focus because people are like, hey, we really like when you did this, like seems like you guys have like kind of stepped away from like your roots. And as like an old fan, like, and so like last year, around like the end of last year, beginning of this year, we kind of like got too far into like YouTube-y, and our fans like let us know, and like we looked at it and we were like, oh, like
What's that mean to YouTube?
We're playing like the YouTube game in addition to like doing what we want. Like I think we're not like, we rarely work on our own cars, and I think like that's like just one way to do it is like you build cars and like people like watch it or whatever, but then like we play like the YouTube game, you know, and like we think of like what's going to perform well on YouTube almost before like or at the same time as like what's valuable as like a car thing. And so like I think that's like a very delicate rope to walk, you know, like between being like clickbaity or being like too niche. So like we want to find like this balance in between where we're like sort of like attractive to an audience outside of cars. Like from the beginning, we've always said like, I want to make car videos that my aunt would watch, you know? So like you don't have to like cars, but if you do like cars, then like, that's like, this is your shit. Right. And so like at one point, I think like last summer we hit like just not even car. Like I think the video that we all kind of agree was like us jumping the shark was we filled an engine with blood.
I don't think I saw that video.
Yeah, not a lot of people did, but like I still think we could have pulled it off. We could have we could have made a good video about it. But yeah, we like went to the butcher and like bought a bunch of pig's blood, and we were like, well, like blood is just oil for your body. And so like we put like a bunch of stuff in an engine, and then like finally
you put blood in an engine to see if it would run.
Blood in an engine to see if it would run. And
that
like
didn't get demonetized.
I don't know. A lot of our stuff does, but like, yeah, that was like, we were shooting it and we were like, this is not good. Like, this is gross. Like, I think PETA's going to shut us down. Yeah. Like, it stunk. Like, blood is gross.
Yeah.
Like, I knew it was like, nah, but like, blood's disgusting. So yeah, so like our audience was like, what are you guys doing? And we were like, yeah, you're right. So we kind of like refocused and like visited like our brand tenets, and yeah, like refocused because like, yeah, everything has to be actual car and not like we're not Mr. Beast. Like props to Mr. Beast for like destroying the genre, but like that's not who we are.
If you're in the business to get views on YouTube, it's certainly become more of a stunt-based platform than it has vlogging nowadays of just wrenching.
Well, we started making videos around the same time ish, right? And like back then, like Nystat was like God of YouTube. Yeah. And like I wouldn't mind if it went back. But yeah, it was like very lifestyle, very like, oh, this is a way to like get a more intimate look at like these people that I admire, and you know, like, yeah, a lot more vloggy stuff, a lot more video essays, which is like what we started doing. And now like definitely it is like big stunt, big title, super title influence stuff. Yeah.
You know, I want to, I've always been curious about first your you know, James Humphrey's origin story. Like, I don't know if like, you know, the listening audience knows like, how did you become the persona that you are, or the person that you are? Because first, and I want to say this before you answer this question or go into your journey with us, is, you know, what I love about you, James, is when I watch the videos, I use this like, you know, analogy, like your headlights are on full, like, you know, they're like on high beam, you know, this light behind your eyes is like shining. And anytime I have a question about anything car related, I go straight to you because you make it so fun.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah. And you know, you shared with us briefly that, you know, you started in comedy, but like, where did you actually, like, how did this journey start? Like where did it begin?
Yeah. So like as a kid, I liked two things. I liked comedies and cars. Like I remember like a Z32 300ZX I saw at the airport. Like my parents were divorced and my dad was taking me to the airport to go back to my mom's house. And I saw a 300ZX and I was like, oh no, I like these. And like that was like the beginning of my cars. And similarly, in 4th grade, I saw Billy Madison. And I was actually talking to my fiance about this earlier, like a couple weeks ago. Like Adam Sandler was the first dude who my dad didn't like, you know, and like he was like mine, you know, like my dad liked Bill Murray and like my dad loved like comedy and stuff, but like Adam Sandler was like the first dude who me and my friends like got. And I think that's very like a very similar parallel to like, oh, I liked imports and I liked Japanese cars and like European cars, where like my dad liked muscle cars and like old British cars. So like it was this kind of at the same time, these two things that like were mine. And like the first time I had taste that was different than what was just fed to me. Like those two things are just like the main constant through my life. So like I've always had a dumb car, and being a comedian has always been like my dream. So when I was 19, I moved to Los Angeles from Louisville, Kentucky. And
you say it Louisville.
I do, because I'm not like, I grew up all over the Southeast, but landed in Louisville when I was like, I went to high school there. So that's why I say I'm from there. It's just easier. But yeah, Louisville is also acceptable. So yeah, I moved here from Louisville, and this theater called Upright Citizens Brigade was just opening their LA branch, and I just got in really early and like luckily got like a bunch of stage time, and was able to like work with like a bunch of people that I had seen in movies. Matt
It's
Walsh.
like an improv group.
Yeah, so like I did a lot of improv. Yeah, a lot of improv and then sketch comedy. So like I had a number of sketch groups. I had a group called The Midnight Show. It was a monthly show, and we all like lived in this big mansion on Wilton in Hollywood together called the Midnight Mansion. And we would like argue about like comedy, like as a science. Like there's like rules that make things funny, right? And like that's like really how we approached it, and like would just the nerdiest stuff, like listening to like National Lampoon Radio Hour, or like watching like scenes from movies and like pausing them and being like, all right, so like what's the game in this scene, you know? And like really just like dissecting, really making comedy not fun. But we would like get in fist fights over what's funny. Did some movie stuff, was on some TV shows. And then
Which TV shows? You gotta tell us. We gotta look these up.
I'm on. I did small guest spots on Two Broke Girls, Arrested Development, How I Met Your Mother, this show called Married, and then I was in like some indie movies, and then I was in this movie Fun Size, which is a Nickelodeon movie.
Was this all through people you met at UCB? Was this through an agent? How'd you get these opportunities?
Early on, I got like representation pretty early when I was younger. And like I was doing Hollywood pretty hard. So I was like, I was rep by CAA, and like I would go on auditions a whole lot. And like when Donut popped up, I was just like so tired of doing it. This is so weird. I don't normally get to talk to actors. Like normally I'm just talking to like YouTube dudes. But yeah, I was just like so tired. Like 3 or 4 years in a row, I was like tested multiple times for like a sitcom during pilot season, and I was like so broke. You guys know, but if you don't, so like every year, I don't know how much it is like this anymore, but like when I was auditioning and stuff, like for like 2 months in the spring, they cast all the new TV shows. And so like I would be going to like 11 auditions a week. And so like that's like 11 job interviews that I'm not getting, but every single one of those job interviews could potentially make me a millionaire. You know, if like a show gets picked up, I remember my manager telling me, he's like, I was like shooting this Spike TV sitcom that I was on, and he was like, oh, you know, like the How I Met Your Mother people, like they just like hit syndication. That's fuck you money. He's like, if you get in syndication, then that's fuck you money. You'll have like $15 million. And I was like, yo, I don't have any dollars. So like it just like this constant up and down. So like when I started with Donut, like this guy Ben Conrad, who directed a lot of the Gymkhanas, really just like prolific director guy. I just wanted to be around him, and I was like done being on camera. And I thought like, oh, I'll just like shadow Ben. He can mentor me, and I'll be a director, and I'll just like direct commercials, and like that'll be my job. And kind of did that for a year, and my boss at the time at Donut was like, make one video with you in it where you tell the history of a car, any car, just do it and put it out. And like I was like, all right. So like I did, and that was the first episode of Up to Speed, and it got like 3 million views on Facebook in like 24 hours. And he was like, all right, cool, you got to do that every week. And that was 7 years ago. So in some form or fashion, been doing that ever since.
Wow.
You know, so yeah.
So is the acting hat just kind of hung up, or if like
it's weird. Like I was totally like done, like just like, all right, this is what I want to do. But like I feel like this year I've sort of just been like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. You know, like I feel like maybe there's some sort of next chapter coming up. I don't know.
it'd be a shame for you not to like spread your wings, because you're so funny, dude.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You know, you're so talented. Because how do you make like, you know, car information content like so entertaining? I mean, that's a gift. I mean, that's your superpower, you know?
Yeah, your guys' growth, you're, I would say, leading the car industry. Can I say that?
Sure, yeah. We're not technically I think we're like the 5th biggest automotive YouTube channel, but I do think like our other businesses and stuff, like all combined, I think we have a pretty big footprint on like automotive. I'd say.
It's really cool to hear your journey, because like, for the listeners out there, you know, it's a testament to how sometimes when you think like you have a certain road that you're following, and then there's a roadblock, these other doors or these other windows open, and that journey that you were initially on actually prepared you for the whole donut thing. You know?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So, I am more aware now than I was then how fortunate like the timing of this whole thing was, because like I didn't go get a loan to start Donut. Like I didn't register the LLC. Like I didn't, like these 3 guys who were, you know, very experienced in all of the stuff that I'm not good at, were just like, hey, we're starting this company. You and Jesse, our chief creative officer and like my main like creative partner, is just like, you can do whatever you want, really, creatively. And so like we were just given like all this space to like fail like a lot, like, you know, take a lot of swings, and like finally kind of like come up with something that at least works for now consistently. And I think like one of the strong things about the Donut team is that like, you know, we're never satisfied, I guess. So like we're constantly like evolving what it means to be Donut. And so like, yeah, like I think that early like encouragement to, you know, do things that might not work continues to be like part of what we do. So
does it get scary to try new things, because it's not very forgiving on YouTube? If you put something out that flops, you may not be promoted again for your next post. Yeah,
I mean, we think like YouTube right now at least really rewards consistency. But I've always really enjoyed being creative within like confines, like whether it's like budget or like just like resources or like rules, or like I think that's why like the way that I approached comedy was like, all right, there's like all these rules, you know, like you set up a reality. All right, we're all on the same page. Like the audience knows that this is the reality. Then you break the reality. That's the joke. And so like then you return back to the reality, and like we kind of catch them off guard, break that same joke again. That's the second beat. And like I always like kind of liked rules, you know, and so
you gotta know the rules to break them.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of knowing the rules and then breaking them. That's like probably my ethos of like being a creator, for sure.
Now, is there a method to the madness of how you approach your content? Because you're literally a Wikipedia of knowledge. I go, does this guy know all of this information beforehand, or do you have to go into this rabbit hole and like go and study up on, you know?
I've always like really valued writing, and so from the very beginning, like writers have been a big part of Donut. So everything's like super written. Like we have punch up sessions, like not so much anymore, but like all those early videos are like, I gave a lot of out of work comedy writers jobs, and I'm like, all right, man, learn about cars. So yeah, it's a lot of research, you know, and like making sure we get it right, because we've definitely got it wrong before. And like, that's the worst. Like that's when they come for your throat, is like when you're like, especially when we're doing Up to Speed, the car history show, we'd like, the worst thing we could possibly do is if I'm like talking about like a 4th gen something, and like an editor shows like the wrong generation car, and just like
you're ruined,
lit up, just like I'm just like, I haven't even seen the edit. But like a lot of research, and then a lot of care put into like crafting jokes and stuff, and then a lot of improv too.
Yeah, I mean, you realize listening to that is that it doesn't just come easy. Like there has to be like a method and a process, and work behind it that nobody ever sees, right?
Yeah, and that process, like, I feel like is constantly evolving for us. There is a method, but like that method is constantly changing, and like as soon as we feel like we know what we're doing, it's old, and so like we have to like start over. And again, I think like that is the aspect of the team that I'm most proud of, is that like we're willing to just be like, you know, like what we were doing isn't working anymore, guys. Like we're done. You know, we're starting over.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, that's what makes people great in anything they do, is like, you know, first being able to take criticism and listen to it, and not allowing your ego to take over. Because, I mean, in Hollywood, you know, man, it's like people surround themselves with yes men. And I see, you know, colleagues that have so much potential, but somehow their ego gets in the way, and they think their shit doesn't stink. But, you know, art is subjective. Right. And if you are not constantly evolving and growing, I think, as a human being, you're not accessible to the viewer, too. And that's... And I don't mean to keep like fluffing you, but that's why it's every time I watch you, it's like you're accessible. You know, like it feels like it's a friend in my living room talking about their passion. You know, and that's something that I search for. You know, as I get older, is like, how do you keep that light behind your eyes? You know, how do you keep like passionate about something when you've done it for like close to a decade already? Yeah, you know.
I don't know. I just think it, like, it's probably not healthy, but it's like just never thinking it's good, you know, as I get older, I'm like getting better at being like, okay, like let's celebrate our wins. And I think like, you know, just as a team, we are so like heads down all the time. I think we like have kind of missed a lot of like milestones and not given them like the proper like celebration or something. It's like, we're actually like actively trying to be better at that. I don't know. I really like making jokes and I really like cars, and like I get overwhelmed by my job a lot, but at the end of the day, if I look at it, I really do feel so fortunate that I'm able to do this. Like it's literally what I wanted to do. Like when I was 9 years old, like I like this thing and I like this thing. How can I make jokes about cars? And like the fact that I get to do that, like if I'm in like contract negotiations, or like I have like a crazy shoot schedule, or, you know, like frustrated with, you know, somebody I'm like working with or whatever, like if I really like look at it, like I'll look at it like, you know, like what's the worst case scenario or whatever, like it's like I get to do exactly what I wanted to do. So it's just sort of everything else is worth it, kind of, you know. So and I really am just like 100% stoked, and if I ever allow myself to not be stoked about it, I sort of like someone will either call me out on it or I'll realize it myself and be like, dude, like, come on, man. Because it could all go away, you know? Like, it's like we were talking about like people coming up to us or something. It's like, well, I would really hate it if nobody did. Or like, I'd really hate it if like I didn't have 3 videos to shoot this week. Like that would suck. Like this is the best. It's the best possible scenario.
What a healthy perspective.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a great perspective. It's great to share with people out there. That, you know.
Do you self-reflect a lot? Are you an overthinker?
I do. I'm like very actively, I take care of my mental health very actively these days. So yeah, I like meditate, practice gratitude.
What made you realize you wanted to put attention on your mental health?
I went crazy, or I was going crazy.
In what sense?
Just a lot of senses. I don't know. I think I've chosen a pretty extreme path, you know, like moving here when I was so young and choosing, you know, like donut's really like my second career, and choosing this sort of like make or break career and then jumping into donut and like everything that came with that. Like I think I like got to the point where I was like allowed to have a normal life, you know, and just sort of like one day just realized I was like exhausted. Like I was just so just beat up. And so, yeah, I, you know, needed to take some attention, like some time and like.
Do you take time off?
Yeah, I do. And our work schedule, like we're all very conscious of it now because I think we kind of went really hard as a community, you know? And so I think like we all were like, all right, guys, we need to like do this better. So like we have like people that make our schedules and like we're very like conscious of burnout now. And, but there were days like in the beginning, I'd say like 2018 was probably like when we first started like hitting. And like there was like a 90-day stint where like me and Jesse worked every day. And like we would just be in the office till midnight just because we loved being there. But, you know, and like we're like, oh, it's not work because like we love doing it. But it's like it is. And you need to like take time. But I don't know. I'm like older now. I'm thinking about starting a family. I like doing other things. I'm like, you know, care about my health. I've had some health scares. But yeah, I just like really didn't take care of myself like from, again, a mental standpoint, but also like a physical standpoint.
Like working out, eating healthy?
Yeah. And like I smoked and like drank a bunch and like did a bunch of drugs when I was younger, which is like fine. Just like stop at some point. But yeah. And so like that sort of made me refocus for a while. And then like I kind of like quarantine kind of took me out of it. And then I think like very recently I've been like I think like very recently I've realized like this is my life, you know? And I feel like I've always like not been present. So like I feel like every accomplishment or everything I'm like working towards this other thing. And recently I've like realized like, oh, this is the life that I live. Like this is my now. Like the dream is now. Like the dream is no longer like, oh, I'm going to be Will Ferrell. The dream is like, I want to be like a good partner, and I want to be like a great like person to like for my friends to like create with, you know, like I really look up to Rick Rubin now. I want to, you know, be a good mentor to people. I want to, you know, do all these things. And like, that's my dream now. So like now my dream is like today. And so everything that I do isn't like looking towards the future, although like it is good to plan towards the future. I think like I'm trying to be more present than I ever was. Cause I think I spent a lot of my adulthood not being present.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that's also a YouTube grind.
Yeah, it's YouTube grind. Like goals are good, but like it drives you crazy. So
I totally can relate with that.
Yeah,
you know, like it took me so many years, and maybe I feel like I kind of just figured it out like recently, like in the past year, like living in the moment, you know. And I was like, you know, always in the grind and like, you know, and thinking about like 10 years down the line, and also never feeling like, you know, I'm worthy enough or I'm good enough. I mean, this one connective tissue that we all three of us have is that, you know, like our biological fathers are not here. Like I didn't grow up with my real father. Like he left before I was even born. You know what I mean? And then, you know, the parents I did grow up with, they kind of split up and stuff. And I mean, do you think that had something to, for me on a personal level, I think was like one of the primary motivations for me to like go into becoming an actor, because like I wanted to feel like, you know, I was validated as a human being. Like I wanted to turn into something that I was not. Like kind of change like what the world or even the way I saw myself. I mean, do you think that kind of background like led you guys into entertainment at all?
Do you want to go first?
I mean, I definitely think so. I don't know. I think like, being funny or like being loud or being just like that dude is, I think early on was like, I was never good at sports or anything. So like that was the first thing I was ever validated in. And like maybe, you know, the only thing I was ever validated in as like a kid was like, I was like, I think like even now, like I'm less like talented and just more willing to like do something. I'm just like not embarrassed to do stuff in front of people. And so I think like, that was like a skill or a trait that was, you know, immediately rewarded as a child and then like consistently rewarded into adulthood. And so I was like, all right, I'll just keep doing this. But yeah, and I always wanted like a million jobs. So like, I think I remember my dad saying, like, I was like, I want to be like, I think I'm going to join the army. He's like, you don't want to join the army. You don't want to like be an architect. Just be an actor and you can pretend to do whatever you want to do.
He said that?
Yeah.
Dad said that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He's like, you can pretend to have any job you want. I'm like, all right. So yeah, but yeah, validation for sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much of a validation, not consciously, maybe subconsciously it could be. I think obviously losing a parent can change your navigation, your direction of where you're going. But for me with acting, my mom will say it was the first thing I would say I wanted to do before even I think I fully knew what it was. I just loved, you know, hanging with my friends, playing pretend. And if I could do that for a living, it's what I wanted to do. But I think growing up in a household that wasn't the most stable, I think caused me in my life to psychoanalyze myself, to never feel complacent, to never feel kind of like what you were saying about that hunger of constantly wanting more and not celebrating the small wins. I find that I'm like that in my life, and I can only assume that's because as I didn't have that growing up.
Completely relate with that.
Yeah.
You know, I can't even do birthdays because I never had birthday parties growing up.
They're hard.
Yeah, so like my wife is, you know, she's like the mother and the sister and the wife that everyone dreams of having, right? And she's always trying to have a birthday party for me, and I can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm like, what are we celebrating? Like I'm just, you know, and I didn't grow up with that validation. Hey, this is your day. You were born, right? Like I go, well, who would come to this birthday party, right? And she's like, I think a lot of people will come for the free food. And
it's catered.
Yeah, it's interesting how like our childhood molds like how we see ourselves in the world, you know. But I mean, talking to you, this is amazing because, you know, I was always so like looking forward to like sitting down with you in person because again, this light that you radiate through, you know, the content that you make, I was like, there has to be like some recipe for this. There has to be like a method to this madness. And, you know, going back to like how, you know, you practice, you know, like mental health or meditation and gratitude. Like, well, what is your approach to that? Where'd you learn that?
Do you meditate?
I do. I meditate. I don't do this so much anymore as much as I should, but I really like breath work a whole lot. Yeah, so I try and I pray. I'm not like religious necessarily, but I do make an effort to pray. I make lists. When I'm at my best, I do all this stuff, but it slips. And then I try more and more now to be like physically active. That was never like a thing that like I made like an effort to do. But I think like one day I was like, dude, I'm getting old. And when you're old, you can't put on muscle. And so like I'm like, all right, I gotta like beef up or my kids are gonna be able to beat me up. And so like now I'm like actively trying to be like more active and stuff.
What made you realize, I mean, subjective saying someone's old, but what made you feel that way? What happened? There had to have been something.
Well, I started getting gray in my beard. Well, like I said, I moved here when I was young. And so like I've always been the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
Like of all my friends, like I've always been like the youngest person. And then one day I kind of like looked around Donut and I was like, I'm older than everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And like I went to the Streamies recently and I was like, yo, I'm like old for my job. Like I'm like one of the older people like in my industry. Like I'm like, and I've been doing this like for almost a decade. Like I've been on YouTube and YouTube, but like for almost 10 years, like that's gnarly, dude. And so like, yeah, I think I've always identified as younger, so I think maybe I had some sort of Peter Pan complex. And then so like I skipped that like, okay, I'm getting old or like I'm becoming a grown up or whatever. So like now all of a sudden I'm just like, oh dude, I'm here. Like I'm here and
life happens fast.
Yeah, and I think, like whether it's like because I'm like old or whatever, like I really do want to do things, like I want to have kids. I'm getting married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited. And so like, I can't ask someone to marry me without like being like, oh, it's going to be for a while. It's like, you want to marry me for 10 years and then I'll die. And it's like, marry me and I'll do it. Like, I have to like promise her that like, it's going to be for as long as I can possibly make it. I'm going to put in all the effort to make this as long of a promise as it can be. So
as you get older, do you find yourself focusing also on what legacy you're leaving behind?
I have like thought about my legacy recently. And yeah, I'm very curious as to what it would be, and so like I'm definitely like not done evolving it. But yeah, I do think about that quite a bit. I would like it to include stuff outside of YouTube, probably. But which is why I'm like so excited about like the other stuff. Like I think I enjoy like our podcast the most, Past Gas podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And then recently, our like apparel line has been like a real joy for me to like do, and like work with our like lead designer of the studio, Andy Paz, and then Tim Moore, our like head of product, is like that's been like really fun. We're in Zoomies now, which is cool.
Yeah, congratulations on
Thank you.
that.
What's your legacy that you want to leave behind, Amelia?
I'm still trying to figure that out. It has been a thought of mine more so lately about what I'm leaving behind, which I think is natural, as you get older. I like to believe I've helped not shift the industry, but maybe open up people's eyes to women representation in the space. But I don't want to take sole credit for that because there's so many incredible women in this industry who helped to make it what it is today. So I don't know. I think as I lean more into the mental health space, having just signed on the board of a nonprofit called Alive and Well, I think just trying to give back and help as many people on this earth while I'm here. I mean, I can't really think of much else that I'd really want to leave behind aside helping other people.
Yeah, I think you've definitely, as a woman in our industry, like, I think the most important thing, or not most important thing, but like something that we can do almost like accidentally is give someone something that they want to emulate, so like I do see a lot, like it's so much easier for someone to do it if it's already been done, because like you can be like, oh, like I really like Emelia Hartford, I'm gonna make a channel like hers. And when
Yeah.
it's like still 100% that person's like style and like their whole like vibe, and like not ripping you off at all, but just like seeing that it worked and like being a fan of something
Yeah.
is like makes it like so much easier. Like I'm such like a proponent of like when someone new starts at Donut, like I'm like, well, who do you like? Like, what do you like to watch?
Mhm.
And so like that's like the jumping off point from like what they're gonna make. But by just existing and like putting stuff out, I think, yeah, you are 100% influencing, you know, the what is to come. You
Well,
know,
thank you. I don't like taking that much credit, but
influencing.
Yeah.
Hashtag influence.
It's also beautiful what Amelia represents, you know.
Mhm.
Like she, like certain like attributes about her, you know, like even self-reflection, you know, that to be able to have someone to understand what that's about, and like, you know, constantly like yourself, to echo what you said earlier, is to never be complacent to who you are and to evolve into something better, right? That's something that I noticed about her. And as I get to know her better over time, I realize that that is a trait that separates her from other people that are making content. And because the camera doesn't lie, you know, it's like, you know, I mean, you've done enough like, you know, film projects where, you know, you see someone and you go, wow, there's something radiating from them. And then you meet them and you go, yeah, they're kind of playing a version of themselves too. You know, like it's acting, but without that, the camera will see the truth, you know?
Yeah. It's very, like you can tell if there's joy behind a performance, and you can tell if there's not. And like a note I've given a number of times to like a lot of our guys is like, yo, dude, I could tell you were not having any fun while you were making that video. And you know, usually it's like, what can we do to make you have more fun? Like, why aren't you having fun doing this? Because at the end of the day, we're goofing around and like driving cool cars, and it's awesome that we get to do this. So if you're bummed doing this, then it's easy enough to fix.
Yeah.
You know?
And you know, because you started, you know, as an actor, you know, I think prior to social media and YouTube, you know, there was a legitimate excuse that these gates to the studios were closed.
Yeah.
Right? And like when young kids today are like, oh, it's impossible to get into filmmaking or be an actor. I mean, you guys are a testament to like, you know, there is another road that you can, and it's actually self-made, you know, and the cadence even with like Asian American kids today that are, you know, content makers, is way different from my generation, because we were, you know, we were beholden by the gatekeepers. Like if you did not get an audition from an agent, right? First you had to get an agent, right? And if the agent didn't, you know, like sign you, you had no way of getting, you know, an audition. And if you don't get an audition, you're never going to get a job. You can't get in the union. It's just the whole domino effect of these barriers, right? And when I see, you know, Asian American kids today that have like massive viewership on YouTube or social media, their walk is different,
Right.
you know, because they're like, I don't need shit. I don't need a fucking studio to tell me like I'm good enough. Like I'll just make my own videos, right? And the self-expression, right? And with, you know, like technology today with Final Cut, and you can, you know, make movies off the cell phone. It's like there really is no excuse today.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I sold a show to Comedy Central like 10 years ago, and like worked on it for like 2.5 years, and like we never shot anything, just like notes and like rewrites and like all this stuff. It's like 2.5 years. Like right now I could shoot a video this morning and like realistically put it up Friday, you know, like, and that's like decent. Like that's like a good video, you know? So like when, you know, I think having had experience with like sort of traditional media and then coming into YouTube with like the support that I had, like I was just blown away by like what I was allowed to do and like how quickly I could turn stuff over. So yeah, it's amazing.
No excuses.
Yeah.
excuse.
Yeah.
You have distribution at your fingertips.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you see yourself still on YouTube in 5 to 10 years? Where do you see your career going? Or where would you like it to be?
I have no idea what
Yeah.
I'm going to do in 5 to 10 years.
Raising kids?
Definitely, yeah, I would like kids, like another dog. Like some more cars. I mean, I'm always going to do something like what I'm doing now. More and more I like sort of fostering creativity in other people. I think that's like something that I'm really that I've always like had, but like now that like I've never known how to do anything before, but so now that I like kind of know what I'm doing, I really do enjoy sharing that with other people. So I think that's going to be a thing that grows more. I'm more interested in business than I ever have been. So I think like, yeah, hopefully I'll be involved in Donut. In 5 years, I think I'll be involved with Donut in some capacity. But yeah, just like more and more stuff, I think. Yeah, more shit.
But I love what that's rooted in, your answer, is that you want to be able to share and give back and foster creativity to like other folks, right?
Yeah. That comes from being like a fan. Like I like stuff and, you know, like I like being a part of it and I like the process a whole lot. And, you know, I make a certain type of thing, but, you know, other people make stuff that like I would never think of making, you know? So like if I can do anything to like help that, then it's really like enjoyable to be allowed to be a part of that, you know? Like it's, if I'm able to like give someone some shortcut or like let them save some time because they don't have to figure it out in the way that I did, like the trade-off is like, oh, you're really good and I get to be like kind of involved in your thing too. So it's like really enjoyable. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I would love to ask if you were to, how old were you when you moved to LA?
19.
19.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to 19-year-old you today, what advice would you give yourself?
It's okay to get a regular job. Go bus tables or something. Being broke doesn't legitimize you. Just kind of like hustle. Also, start a YouTube channel and, you know, keep that going. That's what I would do for sure.
What about people who want to get into what you're doing today? Do you think it's too late to start a YouTube?
No, YouTube's not going anywhere. I think YouTube's going to continue to evolve. I guess like if someone wants to do what I want to do, I would say do what I did and surround yourself with people who can do things that you can't. So like I'm good at some stuff, but like when you combine me with like 3 or 4 other dudes, like we're fucking nuts. Like we're like really good. So you can do it alone, but like personally, I'm always been like a collaborative creator. And whether that's like you guys share a channel or just like being around people that like are doing like kind of the same thing. Like I think like try and find community, but also find people that like are better than you that you can look up to. And if you like rip 3 people off and like make your own thing, then that's not ripping them off. That's having taste. So don't be afraid to like emulate your heroes. Have heroes. That's my advice. Have heroes and emulate them. Yep.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. You got to have people around you that are smarter than you. If you're the smartest person in the room, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this was a
Yeah.
great conversation, James. I feel like, thank you for being so open and candid. I feel like,
For sure.
you know, like I got to know the man behind the myth, and you know,
Right on, yeah.
it's pretty awesome to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Really,
Dude.
really got it out of me.
Yeah. I mean, I have like so much more respect for you after this
right on.
conversation. You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Respect for you too, man.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right on.
Ah, this is awesome.